So I'm back on the 1946 Dodge hinges again, and I bought this stuff here from McMaster Car. I got these bushings which I'm pressing into the hinges on the door, and I got these bushings which I'm drilling this out and pressing these into here on each end. And these are bronze with they have a lot of iron in them because they're actually magnetic, which I was surprised at, but they're oil impregnated, so they should never gald ever again. And I also got some 7mm drill rods, which will work really nicely in there. And I'm going to weld a nut on the end of here, and then I'm going to use those to line up the hinges so that I don't have to push the pin in all the way until after I get the vehicle totally painted, because the hinge pins have a knurl on there, and I don't want to engage the knurl until I'm just about done. And you can see I welded on this to keep it from opening up, and I ground off about 1/16 of an inch off the bottom side of these hinges, and then on the top side I took that little lump here, this oiling hole or whatever you want to call it, I took that off, and then when I put these in, then I ground what's left of these bushings off so it's flush, and I'll put some hardened washers on there to space it so that the door has the right spacing up and down. But the reason I took the 1/16 off is because the flanges are a 1/16 on this bushing, so that'll make up for that extra distance. So I may have to jam maybe one more shim in there just to get the door to the right height. So as I said before, I was going to fill these in. There's two pieces of sheet metal here. I wanted to join them together, and I did the same thing at the top up in here. So now that's all connected. Then I have this piece which I cut off, and I welded those two pieces of metal together all the way around. And so that way when I weld it back in there, it'll be easy for me to weld and to blend in, and I won't have to worry about blowing any holes through the sheet metal, and it gives it more strength. Plus I fixed the hole. That's where I was trying to drill through the bolt, and the drill walked, so that'll be in the right space. And I did the same thing on both of these. This is the upper one. So hopefully when I'm done with this, you won't even know I even did it. The other thing I have down here, you can see that the hinges are much more snug by the time I'm done. There's almost like no wiggle at all, except for I have to shim it in this direction to get the door, the body line to line up. Here, if you look at the top, you can see how I pushed the flanges in. Those are pressed in. I used it was around a 343 drill and drilled through both of these pieces and did them in line. And then I went through with a 3/8 reamer and reamed both of these, and then I pressed these in with a clamp and then reamed them out with a 278 reamer that I bought at McMaster Car. So you can see I welded up that bolt plate back onto the pillar on the truck, so now it's all where it needs to be and everything's solid. And I can yank those pins out anytime I want, so I get the doors off, and they'll go right back on the line where I need them to align. And I'll show you what it looks like with the door closed. Now you can see the body line lines up here pretty good, and still got some work to do down below there. The bottom of the door down here, it's bent a little bit, so either I got to pull the bottom of the cab out or bend the door. And then on the rocker up in the front, somebody left a big gap, so I got to fix that and push the rocker in. You can see I got this door sitting beside the wheel, and I got some shims under to get it level, and I'll show you what it looks like with the level on here. So I'm leveling it this way, and then I level it this way, right to the corner, those two corners. And then I'm using this drill that has a bubble in it, and I can get right on top of it and get exactly level with the bubble. And then I line drill straight through, and then I'm going with a 3/8, and then I push my flange bushings in there. Okay, so in order to bend the door, trying to bend the bottom of that passenger side door in, I had to put this 2x4 across here and a board across the top of the door there so I can hold it, and then I'll show you how I'm bending it in. I had a friend with a Camaro, and he did this, and worked out pretty good for him. So I could put a strap down on the frame below, and then I got this board in here, and I'm trying to push as evenly as I can on the bottom of the door using this 1-inch digging bar, and that worked out pretty good to give me about an 1/8 inch of bend over the whole entire door. So now you can see that the bottom of the door and the body line both line up pretty good. I just need to do some work on the rocker in the front because it's not lined up very good. There's a gap that somebody had over here. I'm going to have to cut that off and re-bend it and push it in. So you can see I moved the whole entire rocker panel in towards the center of the vehicle. I slid it and I took a 1/16 of an inch out of it, and then I re-welded the entire thing on, and then I even had to shrink it in the center a little bit. So now it pretty much lines up all the way along the whole rocker panel and all the way to the front. Got a little bit of bending to do in the front yet and a lot of grinding. I didn't grind the weld down where I welded the rocker back on. So that's where I welded it and took the 1/16 of an inch out in order to line it up with the bottom of the door, because it seemed like on both sides it was out. I'll show you the other side. Okay, same deal on this side, except for I pushed it in 1/8 of an inch. Tried to line everything up and get the body line. And I also had to drop this one down a 1/4 inch in the front. The whole rocker panel was way up in the air in the front. And the other thing with this left door is they must have had the door open and then backed up and slammed into something, because they bent the entire pillar where the 2 hinges are towards the front of the vehicle. So I actually had to cut that off, and I'll show you that in a second. So you can see where I cut this whole entire thing and I lowered it, but before I put it back on, I actually cut this right here, and I put a come along on that, and I pulled this entire thing back first 1/8 of an inch, and I checked it and the body line was too high, and then I kept dropping it until I got it down to where this was cut only a 1/16. The 1/16 was enough to line up the body line. I re-welded it, and then I put this whole panel back on again in order to get it to line up with the bottom of the door. So that's it, and I'm going to stop on this video, and happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you.